Hello YouTube, my name is Nick, and I will be bringing you the rest of my 25 favorite albums of the year of 2015. This is going to be number 10 through 1. Let's get this started. Number 10, Pallbearer, Foundations of Burden. Pallbearer is kind of a throwback doom metal band, and it's long, intricate, beautiful, and thought-provoking. The first song, Worlds Apart, is easily one of my favorite songs of the year. Every time I listen to that song, it gives me full chills. That's how I determine whether a song is very good or not. Everything comes together. The vocals are incredible. If you haven't heard his vocals, definitely check it out. I certainly like this more than their first album. I know that's kind of a heated debate. I like this much more than Sorrow and Extinction. For not any specific reason, it just kind of clicked with me more than that album did. This album, I haven't had a ton of time to spend with it, but the time that I have had with it, I've cherished it, and I love this album. I listen to it all the time. I will be listening to it all the time. Everything is perfect. There's nothing that kind of bothers me with it, which is rare for an album. So yeah, Foundations of Burden by Pallbearer. Number 9, Oathbreaker by Hoth. Hoth is a US black metal band, I believe from Seattle, and it's a story-driven, conceptual piece. Their first album was kind of Star Wars based. This is much more loosely Star Wars based. The acoustics on this are probably some of my favorite acoustics of all time, and that's saying something because I enjoy that kind of stuff. They're meaningful, they're touching, warm, catchy. They don't overuse them. The vocals are a great pitch, they're understandable, very understandable. That might be the weakest part of the entire performance here, or the vocals. The guitars are incredible. The drums do their job. They're not super out there, but they get the job done. And the guitars, the keyboards, and the effects that are used make everything so much better. I've had this album for a long time. I listen to it all the time. It's one of the few albums I have on my phone. I don't do a ton of digital, but it's great. If you haven't heard of them, check them out, because I'm sure they're going to be the next hot thing. They're re-releasing this album here soon on their Bandcamp, so check that out. Number 8, Malana Kosmata by Triptykon. Triptykon, if you don't know, is a continuation of Celtic Frost with Tom Gabriel Fischer. They are a doom, death, thrash, experimental, progressive, gothic band, which all of that makes no sense, and that's the point. It's impossible to put into words. It's the deepest, not cheesy, but I guess clandestine album I've heard in a long time. I like this much more than their first album, Eparcera Daimones, because it's much more touching, it's deeper, it's heavier. The guitar tone, if you don't know Tom's guitar tone, it's probably the most recognizable one in the metal industry. It's heavy. If you put this on and you have a good set of speakers, like a subwoofer or something, I guarantee the song Altar Deceit will shake your house off its foundation. It's that heavy. So, if you don't know this band, check them out. Triptykon with Malana Kosmata. Number 7, Dargonamel with and Abyssum Diaboli. Can never remember the name of that. Darganimel are Russian, I believe, and they play a very unique style of blackened death metal. I hesitate to call it dark funeral worship because this is heads above anything Dark Funeral has ever put out, and it's honestly not entirely like that at all. The guitar tone reminds you of death metal, but what's being played is more black metal, and the vocals kind of vary from black metal to death metal. Excuse me. It's incredibly fast. It goes by lickety-split like that. It's only a little over 30 minutes, and it's super fast, out of control. The solos are crazy, the drumming is crazy, the vocals are crazy. Excuse me, I just ate. Got a little indigestion. But yeah, everything culminates into this giant, epic, sweet amalgamation. Also the art. It's a little dark, but the art also rules. So yeah, some fantastic blackened death metal. It's not like war metal or anything. But yeah, Darganimel with an Abyssum Diaboli. Number 6. Excuse me, brain fart. Desecravity with Orphic Signs. Desecravity is a Japanese technical death metal band, and to put this comparatively to another band is kind of impossible. Think of the tone of Spawn of Possession, and think of the speed of Rings of Saturn, except it's not sped up. The fastest guitars and drums I've heard in a long, long time. And while the guitars are fast, they are not noodly. They still have the metallic tinge that you need with a good death metal album. The vocals are okay. That's probably the weakest point of the album, where the vocals, while they're good, they're kind of standard, and they're layered, which I'm not a fan of. But every song on here has meaning. You can tell them apart from each other. They're decent length, so they don't fly by, which is kind of like their first album. Their first album was much shorter. The solos, the drum patterns, everything comes together just like you'd want to for a technical death metal album. So if you like incredibly fast stuff and you haven't heard of them, check them out. Desecravity with Orphic Signs. Number 5. Solace of Requiem with Casting Ruin. Solace of Requiem should probably change their name. Not trying to knock on them for that, but they play the most Origin-esque death metal I can possibly imagine. I'm not trying to say that they're copying them, because they itch the scratch that Origin cannot do themselves for my kind of taste this year. Super fast, super brutal, kind of technical. Has some really sweet effects on it, and the song lengths make it even better. And to be honest, this is probably my drum performance of the year. While they are blisteringly fast and they make you want to die, they're not overly fast. He doesn't show off. He does everything he should when he should, and yeah, fills are great, effects are great, guitars are great. The vocals are very varied. Highs, lows, mediums, everything that you want out of an album like this. I don't think it'd work if it was a monotonous kind of vocal tone. So yeah, if you like Origin kind of stuff and you didn't like Origin this year, check out Solace of Requiem by Casting Ruin. Casting Ruin by Solace of Requiem. Alright, number 4. Thanafaxith with Sacred White Noise. Thanafaxith is another one of those bands that you can't exactly describe. It's kind of like depressive black metal mixed with some trust, I guess. It's one of those albums that you had to listen to and digest to understand what's going on, because telling it to someone doesn't do it justice, and to spend time with this, it's kind of challenging, but it's worth the payout. It's very dark and mysterious, scary, very scary stuff. If you like that kind of stuff, then this is your kind of music. It's intricate, unorthodox, experimental at times, and everything flows together nicely. It's not disjointed like some of this kind of stuff is. The vocals are kind of pushed back to give the guitars and the drums room to breathe, and that's probably the best decision they could have made on this. It's hard to explain why this album is kind of scary. It's just kind of like how mysterious it is. Like the disc, just literally black. The back, it's just literally black. It's very scary. That's the only word I can think of, is frightening and scary. So that's Thanafaxith with Sacred White Noise. Number 3. Beneath the Barren Throne. Beneath is a brutal death metal band from Iceland, and they play a very, very intricate, intelligent style of brutal death metal. This is what I want out of every brutal death metal album. I could say I'd get bored from it after a while, but that'd be lying. This is my favorite kind of brutal death metal. There's acoustic work, there's clean guitars, there's ugly sounding guitars. The drums are crazy fast, very reminiscent of the Solace Requiem. Does what he should when he should, and also is intelligent about his fills, his patterns, and certainly some of my favorite patterns of the year. I'd say second in line next to Casting Ruin. But this has been out also for most of the year, and I've had a lot of time to spend with it, and I'm very certain that I will be listening to this for many years to come. It is the highest caliber brutal death metal that you can possibly imagine. You can't find many other bands that can pull off this kind of thing, because it kind of gets boring after a while. I can listen to this whole album beginning to end over and over and over again, and I can't find many brutal death metal albums like that. There's so many breaks and nuances to the album where it doesn't get boring at all. There's acoustic breaks, or extremely long songs, like 7 or 8 minutes. And there's super short songs that are very fast. So it's all over the place in terms of speed, delivery. The production is great, it's not too clean, it's not too ugly, which is what you want. I like my death metal kind of clean, and I like my black metal kind of dirty. So it's my favorite orthodox death metal album of the year. If you haven't heard of Beneath, do yourself a favor. Their first album was okay. This album is incredible. So that's The Barren Throne by Beneath. Number 2. This was a very hard decision for me. Number 2 and number 1 could have easily switched places at any time. Every time I listen to one, I think, oh, this is the one. And every time I listen to the other one again, I'm like, oh, this is the one. So they could easily be tied for first, but I can't do that to myself and have 2 number 1s. So here we go. Number 2, The Whisper by Spires. Spires is a progressive, experimentally technical death metal band from the UK. This was my first exposure to them. They have an album previous to this, which I haven't spent a ton of time with, so I won't give my opinion on it yet. But this is the precipice of what progressive death metal should sound like. This is perfect. It is easily a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. The songwriting, the progression, not progressiveness, the song progression, the instruments from the cello to the effects from the keyboards, the drums, the guitars, everything oozes perfection, grandeur, and It's everything I could ever ask for out of an album. I saw this album art and I'm like, yeah, I know I'm going to like this. Check out that album art. See if I can get a good picture of it. It's just what I want. It's kind of limited. I got number 101 of 500. So if you want this album, I suggest you get on it. It is a perfect album. I have zero complaints with it. The clean vocals are some of the greatest clean vocals I've ever heard in any genre of music. Every time I hear the first song, the entire way through, I just, it gets me. It's very happy, melancholic, inspiring. And also one thing I'd like to mention, the song number 6, Elsewhere. That is a very interesting song title. Yeah, I don't see many song titles I look at like, yeah, that's sweet. It's almost entirely instrumental, and that's the only word that can describe that song is Elsewhere. And every time I hear that and it leads into the final song, The Whisperer, which is about 20 or 21 minutes, it's just great. You can't get any kind of quality like that anywhere else. I can listen to this album day and night, summer, winter, dead or alive. I'll listen to it all the time. I do. If you haven't checked this album out, certainly do, because it's great. The Whisperer by Spires. And number 1. Dun, dun, dun. Timelessness by Certs. Before I start this review, I'm going to show you this artwork. That's probably my single favorite album artwork of all time. Everything about it just oozes grandeur and pedigree. I wouldn't mind having like a full silkscreen print or a canvas painting of that because it's just beautiful. I don't remember the name of the young woman who painted that or did it on a whatever, but it's incredible. Enough about the artwork, on to the album. Certs is a progressive experimental metal group from Belarus, and no words can describe how much I love this album. This is one of my favorite albums to come out ever, I'd say easily. The songwriting, the dynamicism, the vocals, instrumentals, everything comes together perfectly. And what makes this album so great is that their entire purpose on this album is to do things that no other band would. There's instruments like a Jew's harp, there's saxophone, there's piano, there's keyboards, there's a thing called a duduk. I don't know if that's how you say it. There's fretless guitar, I believe, and it's just otherworldly sounding. I've never heard anything like it before, and this is kind of one of those once-in-a-lifetime albums that I don't think any other band could ever pull off, no matter how hard they try or how convincing they try to make it, because everything about this album is convincing, and I don't know what else to say about it. The guitars, drums, vocals, bass, all those other instruments come together. And one thing I'd like to mention is that the person who had to mix and master this album must have been pulling their hair out, because at some points it gets so dense, but it never gets cluttered. That's the biggest triumph of this album, I believe, is that it is perfectly mastered. Everything is where it should be. Nothing ever gets annoying. Nothing ever sounds cheesy. It's very hard to explain the kind of things that go on in this. The perfect word is like otherworldly or ethereal. It's not like hypnotic or anything, but it's one of those albums that, again, you're not going to hear often, if ever at all, again. And listen to the first track, Into Shambhala. If that song doesn't sell you on the album, then nothing will. So yeah, number 1, Timelessness by Certs. So that is going to conclude this video. Hopefully you found some albums or bands that you were unaware of that you might enjoy, and I will see you next time.